Welcome to the commentary booth, where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator, Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by a special guest colour commentator in the form of the owner of jewellery brand Maison de Femmes. Welcome to the show, Jessica Kumanovski.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. How's everything at the moment? Business booming?
Yeah, it's been a good start to the year. It's been busy, especially after the Christmas rush. So yeah, it's good when things kind of keep momentum-wise going into New Year. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's definitely a bonus that it didn't sort of all drop off after Christmas.
Yeah. Normally January is a bit of a slow period, but yeah, it's good this year. It's been busy, kept me busy.
That's good. So yeah, before we dive into what we've been watching and checking out this week, are you able to give us a sort of little bit of background about who you are and what your favorite movies and TV shows are?
Sure. So I'm a Wollongong girl. Live in Melbourne, but I'm currently home for Christmas and summer to see family and friends. I've got a jewelry label, Maison de Femmes. I've had that going on. This is my 4th year, so it's just kind of been slowly growing the last few years. COVID and online shopping has definitely helped kind of grow awareness and help build the brand. But being in lockdown last year for I don't even know how long. I got down there in April and then we got out in November for 8 months with a month off. I watched a lot of Netflix and got into this really bad habit of at night I'll just sit and watch Netflix or Stan while I'm making jewelry or doing my accounting or answering customer service emails. So it's kind of like during the day I do all my orders and get it to the post office, and then at night I kind of get ready for the next day and do all that really boring shit. But it's nice to have something kind of going on in the background. So yeah, I watched a lot of TV, and yeah, a lot of people kept saying you should watch Ozark, and then yeah, I kind of binge watched that through a few weeks and posted on Instagram all of my colorful thoughts about their parenting skills and their horrible children. Which I think is why I'm here today, so we can talk more about that.
Yep.
But yeah, otherwise, what else have I been enjoying? I just started watching Manifest. I'm still on season 1, and I really like time travel kind of, mind-bending sort of films or TV shows like Looper or Arrival was a really good one, just that kind of stuff. So they're probably my favorite kind of genre of film. But yeah, so Manifest kind of has that time travel element and, mystical, or how did they get here sort of vibe. But yeah, it's definitely kind of losing my interest towards the end now, because it kind of finished that, season 1s are normally really exciting and interesting, and then they start to really grasp the straws on how to push a story forward. And I feel like it's kind of getting there, but they've got 3 seasons, so maybe they've figured out the secret sauce, but we will see.
Yeah, that was sort of I was recommended that show and went to start it and saw that there was 3 seasons, and I think they're long seasons as well, and I was like, oh no, that's too much of a commitment.
Yeah, my attention span isn't amazing, so I'm more a TV show person than a film person, because the commitment of, an hour and a half movie that might be terrible is, I don't know, I just don't want to have to sit down and invest in all of that. I like little shorter stories that I can kind of enjoy and leave and pick up or binge in one go. And I feel like TV shows, they kind of, because it's a shorter time frame, they're forced to give you a lot more information and progress the story, and yeah, than they normally do in a film. So
yeah, there's a lot
I'm trying to
less
think of
sort
what else
of low periods in a TV show because they have that shorter time per episode.
to get you engaged and tell their story and all that sort of stuff. So Yeah, I'm trying to think about what else I've watched recently, but I'm drawing a blank.
If you like the sort of weird time travel mind bending shows, have you watched Dark on Netflix, the German show?
No, no, I
Okay,
haven't.
that might be one to get into if Manifest loses you. There's only one season at the moment. It's a German show, so obviously it's in German, so you can either watch it dubbed or subbed, but it's definitely one that I think if you like that mind bending, how did this all come to be, I think that'll be one that you'll enjoy.
Yeah, I just finished watching Travelers as well. I tried watching that a few years ago and I couldn't really get into it. And then, yeah, I finally got around to watching it again, and that's got that time element, time travel. They're from the, if in case you're not aware of what it's about, like the premise is they're from the future and then they're sent back into the bodies of people who are about to die so that they can change some cataclysmic event that ruins the future. And so you kind of get invested in these characters and how they're going to make these changes and solve these puzzles so that this horrible eventual event doesn't happen. So that was, yeah, I didn't mind that one. To be honest, I watch most things with subtitles on. I feel like the older I'm getting, the more I'm like, just not hard of hearing, but like don't understand what people are saying if they say it too quickly. So I'm just like, subtitles, I need them on there all the time just to make sure I'm getting everything.
That's funny because I've actually just gone through that whole period with myself as well. Like, I think Netflix too recently, their sound mixing hasn't been great either. So the
I'm
action
gonna
sequences
blame
are
that and not
crazy
my
loud.
age.
Yeah, the action
Yeah, that does
sequences are
drive me
crazy
nuts. Yeah.
loud, and then the dialogue is really quiet. So I'm just like, I'm just going to put the subtitles on so I don't have to blast the entire house with explosions or whatever that's happening in the actual show.
Yeah. Especially when you live in an apartment and then everyone downstairs is like, can you fucking not? So, which I completely get. It's so annoying when people are annoying. So I'm always trying not to be that person. So I've definitely embraced the subtitles in the last 12 months.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you? What have you been watching?
So yeah, like we mentioned, Ozark, binge watched the newest episode of that. And then following on from that, I watched a show on Stan called The Tourist, which is sort of kind of similar, where it's about a English backpacker that sort of wakes up in the outback after a car crash, and has no memory of his life. And then it's just kind of him trying to work out who he is, how he got to be in the outback of Australia, and then it all unravels and his crazy underworld mob ties and things like that. I was like, oh, that was interesting. There's only like 6 episodes, so that was a decent watch.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. I like those kind of like amnesia style. Memento, is it Memento I'm thinking of with
Yep.
The Aussie guy who can't remember past a certain number of hours and he's constantly writing shit down. Am I thinking of the right one?
I don't know. I think that's
It might not
Memento,
be.
but it's been so
I
long
think it
since I
is as
watched that.
well. I know, yeah. But I like those that style where it's like, you know, you're slowly kind of working backwards to figure out what the story is rather than the normal linear storyline.
Yep. Yeah, and then like just the other stuff I've been watching is sort of the Disney Plus shows, the Book of Boba Fett, things like that. There's a few others that are dropping on there recently. I think there's one called Insane that's just dropped on there that looks interesting as well. So plenty to watch on the streaming services, but as you mentioned, I saw that you were getting right into Ozark over the last sort of 6 months. So when the new season
Yeah.
came up, I was like, who am I going to talk to? It has to be Jess. She seems to have some hot takes on this show.
Yes, they drive me insane. I've finished watching this full season. I think I watched it in like 3 days, maybe less.
I did the same.
Yeah. Where did you want to start?
So we'll just brief outline. It's part 1 of season 4 because this is the final season, so they've split it into 2 parts, 7 episodes apiece. And yeah, it just follows the Bird family again as they try to unravel the craziness that they've kind of got themselves involved in with drug cartels and money laundering and all of the sort
The
of
FBI.
crime world of the Ozark area. And I this season was again incredible in terms of the storytelling, and it finished on a point where I was like, bring on part two as soon as possible, and I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later, because if they want to be eligible for the Golden Globes, they have to release the entire season. They can't have part one and part two be eligible as
Mm.
separate categories. They have to have the whole season out. And in order to be eligible for the Golden Globes, the entire season has to be out by May 31st this year. So I'm hoping if they want that, part two will be a lot sooner than we're sort of expecting, especially because they finished filming in October 2020.
Okay, so yeah, they're probably just, spoon feeding it out or trying to make the most of it with two separate parts. So yeah, we've got time. Maybe in the next 3 months they'll launch part two. Plus, I also don't want to have to go through and like rewatch a lot of content to try and get up to scratch with what's going on for the second part of the season.
Yep.
So hopefully that happens quickly.
I think that is always the hard part with Netflix shows that come a full year later or sometimes even longer, where you go to watch the new season, you're like, I can't remember anything from season 3, but it's sitting right there. Do I just rewatch it? Or for me, I just watch the if you go into the episodes and more section of the Ozark category, there's you scroll all the way down and there's recaps for each season. So I just watch those, and I think they're about 5 minutes each, and it was enough to sort of get me up to speed. But yeah, if you really wanted to, you could rewatch the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, sometimes I just go find like a recap online. Yeah, I kind of prefer just quickly being able to skim read stuff, especially like when it's kind of stupid because we're talking about videos here, but like online, I would prefer to read like an instruction than watch a video instructing because you can control it more.
Yep.
But yeah, I prefer to just kind of go through and be like, what does Vulture say about this? What happened? And then jump right into it.
And did season 4 sort of live up to your expectations? Obviously, watching it in less than a weekend, I guess it did.
Yeah, I guess so. To be honest, it just felt a little bit like more of the same themes, reworked in a slightly different way. So, which I mean, there's not a huge amount they can do. Obviously, they've got the same problems that they've had throughout all of the seasons. Like this is really only, what is it, like 4 seasons, but it's based over a year, or for them, like their timeline is really only like 12, 18 months maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely a very short
Yeah,
period of time.
a lot shorter than it feels when you're actually like watching it over 3 or 4 years. But yeah, I just felt like it was just a lot more of the same kind of problems that they already had, and then just, I guess, seeing how they respond to it, but they're just kind of responding to it in the same ways they always have. And I think my problem with this show is that I'm watching it and I'm just like, you guys are so lucky. Like they keep trying to make out like Marty is just this incredible, incredibly clever money laundering accountant, but the bulk of the fact that they're still alive is purely just luck. Like, the fact that they didn't shoot them in the first season when they shot his business partner because he pulled out a pamphlet for the Ozarks and made up some dumb story on the fly. Like, and then everything that they're doing constantly is them just thinking on their feet and bullshitting their way into not getting killed.
Yep.
Even like with, what was the lawyer's name? Helen. Even with Helen, like that shocked me. Like that was a fantastic cliffhanger for season 3. They get to Mexico. She's so like, confident and cocky and arrogant in her position there, except for the fact that she got waterboarded. So I liked that she kind of got taken down a peg with that. But, she was still kind of felt like she was in a privileged position, and then just out of nowhere, they've got a brain matter like smeared into their hair. Like that was great and felt like nice comeuppance, although I kind of would have liked to have seen her like for her to have seen it coming, because she was such an asshole that it was like, I kind of wish she knew it was going to happen rather than just like, I'm so smug and then, you know, nothing, she said.
Yep.
But yeah, even that, like, you know, so you reopens, they're at this party for Navarro at his complex. They're washing, you know, skull and brain matter out of their hair. And, you know, Wendy's like, oh my God, like, Marty, like, help me get this out of my hair. And you know, the next scene, they're perfect and her hair is blow dried and they're wearing nice clean clothing. And then she's like disagreeing with Navarro when he's like, yeah, guys, look, this is what I want. You're friends with the FBI. You're good at your jobs. I want you to help me clear my name and be able to be a free citizen, come into the US whenever I want, not get pulled up, all of this shit, like, which is an impossible task. But she's so like brazenly just like laughing about it, like, no, like, that's not going to happen. That's impossible. And it's like, you are talking to somebody, this terrifying man, like she admits in a few episodes, like, you know, basically he's the most terrifying person she's ever met compared to some of the other politicians she has to deal with. And it's like, you're talking to this guy as if like you have power in this situation, like you weren't just in the bathroom washing Helen's, you know, skin off your face. Like,
yeah, like she just watched him brutally murder someone right next to her, and she's still defiant. Like, just
she didn't
do
flinch.
what he wants.
She's still defiant. Like, she's still acting like she has some semblance of power here, and it's just like, what? And that's kind of, I guess, the whole theme for Wendy throughout all of season 4, part 1, is her arrogance. Like, and I mean, she's obviously had that throughout the entire show, but like her arrogance is just so frustrating, and it's really hard to watch this season, like how, you know, arrogant and entitled and victim, like she really plays herself as the victim, which nicely comes to bite her in the ass, like about, you know, she killed her brother, had her brother killed, and then she's acting all sad and weird about it. And there's this weird cognitive dissonance where she's like, oh, it's not him. And Marty's like, of course it isn't. Like, he's dead. You killed him. Like, we know he's not him. And she's like, oh yeah, of course. But like, it's like she has like created this world in her mind where she's like, you know, oh, my brother is mentally unwell and a drug addict, and that works for the narrative I'm trying to push with my foundation, and maybe he's still out there. And then she starts to believe her in bullshit. And then Marty's
that's
like,
what I was thinking.
What?
The only way she's not getting caught in the lies is because she's beginning to believe her own lies, and like in her mind, that's the truth now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, I don't know, it's just really, I don't know. It was hard to watch and frustrating because you're like, you're supposed to be one of the protagonists here, and I really just don't like, I don't really like any of them, to be honest. Maybe Marty. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't like Wendy at all. Like, if Wendy suddenly got killed, I'd be like, well, you kind of earned that yourself.
Yeah. But I mean, the problem, I guess, with killing shitty characters is they do push the story forward in some way. They give you somebody to root for and somebody to root against. And so if they got rid of her, then you'd be like, oh, well, now what? Like, now who do we hate? Who's the villain here? So she definitely plays that role. But yeah, I thought it was really, really bizarre how she's such a victim. And yeah, really, I mean, she's trying to get into politics. She's trying to, like, it's a very interesting mix of Breaking Bad and House of Cards. It's very, you know, Bunkenville in the Ozarks, and she's trying to, create this political career for herself, which I guess kind of makes sense. Like, they're talking about all the money that they're going to need, and she's just so manipulative and such a victim, and able to, like, you know, manipulate the narrative to fit her story and her agenda. So yeah,
and I feel like,
I think they're portraying that well.
Like you mentioned, sort of Breaking Bad, I feel like she sort of very much echoes the wife from Breaking Bad as well, where at the beginning you kind of feel bad for her, like she's been dragged into this not sort of by her own will, but then when she sort of starts to see how she can use it, she does that, she starts to use it and then takes it too far, and you begin to hate her because of that, and she tries to take it too far.
Yeah, I think Skylar definitely did that in Breaking Bad. Like, you know, oh, well, I'm going to make the best of the bad situation, so let's embezzle all of our money into a car wash, and I'm going to be the boss, and I'm going to do this. And but then when it doesn't suit her, she bails, like she gets out of it. It's kind of like, you can't have both. You kind of need to be in this or get out of it. And, you know, as we saw in, I think, season 1, like, she was in this from the start. It's not like Marty got involved with the cartel laundering behind her back. Like, they had an open dialogue, they had an open conversation. Should we do this for our family? Is this something we should do? I don't know. Should we? Yeah, maybe. I guess we should. Great, let's do it. They went on their little holiday. They like got wined and dined and all of that. So they went into this wholeheartedly together. And then, you know, when everything kind of falls to shit, she's the one trying to run away with her old rich boyfriend.
Yep.
And all the rest of that shit, you know. So pretty much from the get-go, she's like, oh, I'm a victim. And it's like, well, are ya?
And I feel like over the course of the show, it's kind of like those first couple of seasons were them sort of thinking, what have we got to do just to get out of this situation? But then everything sort of piles on, and they end up weaving this crazy tangled web. And now season 4 is them trying to unravel that all so that they can escape. Like, now that they're that deep in, it's kind of like, I don't even know which way is up now. How do I get out of here?
Well, I mean, it's funny you should say that, because I feel like they're not even trying to get out of it anymore. Now they're just leveraging, you know, the line between good and bad and right and wrong is just so obliterated with them. Like, they're selling heroin to a pharmaceutical company. They're drug dealers now. Like, and then they're negotiating deals with
Darlene Snell.
Darlene, yes, Darlene. Okay, I like that she's so like, well, this is what I've got to do, and she just does it. Like, she just will shoot somebody in her kitchen, like killed her husband, like killed the first mob guy in there after they made a deal, and she just shoots him like, he disrespected me. Like, she gets agitated and just does what she needs to do to like protect her like respect or keep her self-respect. I don't know what it is she's doing, but it's like she's just got so much pride, and she's got so much like,
like, she takes like the
power
opposite
in the way that
approach.
she does things.
She takes sort of the opposite approach to the birds, who are kind of like, they try to sort of be underhanded and sneaky and manipulative about it, whereas she's just like, you're in my way and I'm going to take you out of my way, no matter what that requires.
I've got lime and a huge property, so someone go and dig a hole and bury them. Like,
she probably should invest in an excavator at this point, though.
You would think so. Like, the
instead
amount
of hand
digging
graves,
digging a hole. I know. Every time I see that, I'm like, they must be so sore. Like, imagine digging a huge pit for 6 hours and then having to bury someone, and then like, your body would ache. But yeah, like, you're right. Like, there's definitely that kind of comparison between the birds are like really clean and city people, and she's, you know, this woman from the earth kind of person, like really down to earth, very much like, well, this is what I'm going to do to protect my family, protect me and my property and my business, to like the nth degree of like, just, you know, killed this chauffeur because I mean, how dumb do you have to be to ask her for something? Like, oh, I'm going to need your, like, I'm going to need something from you here. And she's like, yeah, well, here it is, the other end of my rifle. Yeah, so I find her to be a really interesting female character in this. In fact, I think that's probably what the show does well, is that like the female characters in Ozark are all quite strong, quite independent, quite smart and crafty in the way that they do things. Even the daughter, like, I hate the daughter, but I find her so obnoxious.
I was just about to ask what you think of Charlotte.
I can't stand her. Like, she's just so entitled. And that's on them. Like, they are terrible parents. But to like the character's credit, she is headstrong and independent and intelligent enough to, you know, find ways out of situations and manipulate things to her benefit, even if, you know, like, season 3 was just so frustrating. She's like running off with Wyatt. Like,
Mm.
and she's complaining constantly about how she wants to be back in Chicago and she wants to see her friends. But then now she's like so solidified in the family business that she doesn't even want to go to college. Like she's like, oh no, I'm in the family business. It's like, what? Like how? I don't understand how this like happened.
Yeah,
I actually can't remember what I missed.
I think I liked her better in this season, but I think that is pretty much just because she kind of disappeared into the background a little bit, where she was just kind of,
Yeah. Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to do whatever the family needs me to do to get out of this, rather than like Jonah. He's gone the opposite way,
Oh,
where at the start, Charlotte was very, no, I don't want any part of this in the first 2 seasons, and then she's sort of slowly come around. Jonah has kind of gone the opposite direction, where he was, how can I make this work? And then after Wendy's brother, he's kind of like, nope, I'm going my own way and I don't want anything to do with my family anymore.
yeah. Yeah. I thought that was interesting that they've basically just swapped they've basically just swapped one character for another. Like up until season 3, it was Charlotte being a pain in the ass child, and now they're like, oh well, now Jonah is at the age where apparently teenagers become nightmares and rebel. And I mean, maybe that's kind of where they're at. They're like, oh well, what would a 15, 16-year-old do in this situation? Oh, they would rebel. And now he's kind of gone from being a 12, 13-year-old to, well, it hasn't been that long, but yeah, maybe he's supposed to have like gotten a year older, and now he's at that age where he's rebelling and pushing back against, what his family wants. But I think you're right in saying that once Ben died, because he was so close to his uncle, and realized that it was his mother that did it, I think that's definitely where that kind of, yeah, what word am I looking for? But like shard in the relationship kind of came up.
He had a motivation to like flip his character though, whereas Charlotte kind of just happened out of nowhere. Whereas at least Jonah had that, here's a moment where everything switches for me.
Yeah, which is actually interesting because I mean, Charlotte has been an arsehole since the first episode. Like there's that scene where they're having dinner and she's whining and carrying on, and she's like, can I have money for my friend's birthday party or whatever it is? And I think one of the dad says no, and the mom is like, oh, just give it to her. And she's like, oh my god, why? Like, why won't you give it to me? It's only $10 or whatever. So basically she doesn't understand the value of a dollar. Which is ironic because Marty is so frugal and scrupulous with his money, even though they've got all of this, drug laundered money in their pocket. And he's like driving this old shitbox car and whatever, and he's being so like tight with his money. But then his daughter is so like, oh, it's only whatever, like I didn't earn it, you earned it, but give it to me.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like, they're like, oh, well, her driving force is just that she's a bratty teenage girl, whereas for Jonah, he gets character development and, oh, well, this horrible thing happened and now he's starting to see the cracks in his parents and all that sort of stuff and pushing against his mother's authority. But then like what drove me nuts about Wendy, again, her response to that is like just completely disingenuous. Like, oh, hi guys, I've created this fire pit and I'll keep it lit all of the time for Ben, who I killed. And when Jonah is like, fuck off, her response is, instead of being like, yep, I screwed up and I need to earn my children's trust, her response is, well, I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off. Like, I'm going to punish him because I didn't get what I wanted, and so now I'm going to take it out on you. And she's a brat as well. Like the children are brats because the parents are brats. Wendy doesn't get what she wants, and so she jeopardizes stuff for other people, and then she acts justified in doing it. And then she says to Marty, like, we're supposed to be on the same team here, you're supposed to have my back. And then she does things that without consulting him, and then he's like, well, what happened to that? And she's like, oh well, here's me justifying why I didn't do that because it didn't benefit me. Like, she's just an asshole.
And I think the big point there is like with her, what she does to Jonah once he sets up his own little money laundering scheme for Ruth. Wendy breaks into his hotel room where he's set up and basically gets him red flagged and potentially thrown in prison. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, that is not how you're going to get him to come back to you. That's just pushing him away further.
That's exactly what I thought. I was just like, I don't understand how you think this is going to bring someone closer to you. Well, because I mean, it kind of worked for Charlotte. Like she didn't have anything, so she had to come back to them, and that's what they like. Like they're two people who are out of control in their own lives, and so they're trying to control their children as best as they can. And so they need that level of, oh, well, you need me, and you need to be in my life so I can like protect you and all this sort of stuff. And she's like, well, it worked with Charlotte, so create let's engineer a situation where Jonah needs us. And it kind of worked because then Marty went in and swooped in and saved the day. But obviously Wendy didn't get the accolades for that, so she chucked another tantrum.
Yep. And like, I see where it sort of worked with Charlotte because, yeah, like until this season, she kind of was a very one-dimensional, just like you said, the entitled child. So if she was left out on her own, she wouldn't really know how to fend for herself. Whereas now she knows what she's doing now that she's sort of working in the business. Whereas Jonah is he seems to be a really smart kid. And if he was out by himself, I think he'd be okay. So pushing him away isn't really going to bring him back.
Exactly. And like he even said to Marty at one point, like, Dad, I have 6 figures, like, because I remember that they all go away and he's staying home by himself, and Marty's like, here's some money for pizza and food, and like in case you need anything. He's like, Dad, like I'm worth 6 figures. And he's like, yeah, but it's still tied up in crypto, so like here's some liquidity. And it's like, okay, so 15-16-year-old has like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like
I think he'll be fine.
Like you're right, like I think he'll be okay. Like Charlotte, on the other hand, like has nothing. She bought a fucking shit van with money that she stole from her parents. And then they notice, like, of course they're going to notice if $10,000 is missing. Like, she's just, I don't know. She's very short-sighted. Like, of their children, he's the intelligent one, and she's just the loud one.
Yep. And then the other sort of big character in this show is Ruth. What are your thoughts on Ruth?
I like Ruth. Like, back to like strong female roles, which I think they've done really well in this series. Like she's, really tenacious, really smart, really like strong and independent, especially like with her background. Like she feels like she's come from nothing, and she has a record, and in the past when she's tried to make it on her own, like it just has been scheming and horrible, and now she's kind of gotten into a position where she feels a little bit more powerful. I am surprised by like how quickly she was to go against Darlene. Like, she undersold, she said to Darlene, look, let's sell designer, amazing farm to vein heroin to these rich people that I know. And Darlene's like, no. And Darlene is a fantastic, like, I'm not sure what the actress's name is, but she's a fantastic actress. Like, you can see her getting agitated as Ruth is talking. You can see how like everything that's going on mentally is like coming out physically, and she's like physically agitated at the idea of this happening and losing control of her business and all of this stuff. And yet Ruth just doesn't pick up on any of this, and like doesn't seem to realize how dangerous Darlene is. And actually, and I mean, I guess out of her love for Wyatt, she hasn't killed Ruth yet. But I think if Darlene and Wyatt hadn't been killed, eventually Darlene would have shot Ruth, buried her in the farm somewhere.
Oh yeah, it was definitely sort of coming to a head with them, and kind of Omar Navarro kind of just got in the way in between it.
Yeah, I think eventually it would have happened. Although I do like how somewhere in there, like they're having this big argument, and Ruth says to her, you like me, you need me, because there's no, you don't have anyone else like me. Like, another, I can't remember exactly what the scene was, but she was like, you know that you want somebody like me in your life, like strong woman in your life. And Darlene instantly was
you've
like,
never had another woman
like,
challenge you.
Yeah, like you've never had someone like, and that's a good thing. Like sometimes being challenged is what you need to grow and like do better and be better. And I think Darlene saw that. So that was kind of a nice moment between them. But yeah, Ruth, she is so out of her depth so often, and yet she still manages to like twist something to come out on top. So even with like, yeah, like the guy ODs at the bell, and then on the coat and the heroin that she's doing, and then still manages to be like, okay, well, now that Darlene's like sold all of this heroin to the Kansas City mob, she manages to do another deal to get it back to sell to Marty. Like, I don't know, it's just like, yeah, she's very like, yeah, very wily, very interesting. And then I also quite like that her and what's his name, Junior, I can't think what his name is, but the mafia mob boss's son that had his dick cut off, or whatever his name is. I can't think what his name is. I like that they ended up like, yeah, realizing they would actually be pretty good together, and kind of having a little bonding moment. So that was sweet. But yeah, no, I like Ruth. I think she's, yeah, a necessary character in the dynamic of all of the like archetypes they've pulled out.
And with the way this part 1 of season 4 ends, I think she's going to be a very pivotal character in part 2, and it's sort of going to be her on the warpath by the looks of things.
Yeah, after that ended, I started thinking about it. I was like, she absolutely is primed to step into the farm and be the next Darlene. Like, who would they have left the farm to? Zeke, maybe, if they could actually get guardianship over him or adopt him, which they hadn't. But because they got married, like, surely Wyatt would have left everything that he had to Ruth. And there's that scene where they're talking about divvying up their partnership, and Darlene says, no, my 50% and Wyatt's 25% will be 75% that will split, because it's like a lot more even for her and Wyatt, because she wants them to be a team and a partnership and a family unit. So I reckon, like, I think like if you fast forwarded 10 years, you would see Ruth living on the farm with her poppy fields, like, I don't know, distributing heroin and opening up casinos and laundering money and like being the new, you know, queen of the Ozarks, which is kind of like a beautiful cyclical way for it to go, because she started out as like, you know, her family were like white trash, but then, I mean, that's her words, like not mine, but like she's like, you know, our family are white trash and trailers, and our dad in jail and her uncles and their dumb schemes with those wild cats and all this shit, and like for that to like go from there to like being the queen of the Ozarks, I think would be a really nice touch. But yeah, I can definitely see her. I can see her like becoming, like you said, a pivotal figure in the next season and beyond.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is probably where we're going to end up at the end of season 4, where she kind of ascends from nothing to be the top and potentially makes like a deal with the cartel, and then she just runs the Ozarks and feeds their industry, if you can call it that, but feeds their enterprise and sort of how they work together in that region without sort of creating an all-out war. And then the birds kind of get pushed out, and it's just her running that area.
That's essentially what the birds were trying to do with, I can't think what the first guy's name was, the one I got that Darlene shot because he was disrespecting her. But remember, he like made an agreement between Jacob and Navarro to sell the heroin to the cartel, so they don't have to keep importing it, and then just use their distribution networks and grow their territory. So it'd just be going back to that agreement that they already had, and she'll just have to make it with Harvey, I guess, seeing as he's now the new crime lord for the next 10 years.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this part 2 of the season whenever it comes. Like I said, hopefully sooner than later. But yeah, this first half, it felt like it started really slow, but boy oh boy did it gather pace, and super excited for the next part. Like when this finished, I was like, oh man. It was again like season 3, that big cliffhanger moment. I was like, geez, don't end here.
Yeah, it felt very unfinished. What did you think of Harvey?
Which one's Harvey again? Remind me.
The nephew, Navarro's nephew.
Oh, He is a maniac.
He's
He's
definitely a maniac, but I quite liked his character, like charming and cheeky, and like there was a scene, I think it's in the first episode, where Navarro says, you know, this is my nephew Harvey, and he wants to take it over, like he wants to take over the business, and basically he's aware that like his nephew will kill him. But then like in later scenes, like later episodes, like Harvey's very like family oriented, like, you know, blood first, like family first, trying to do his own little investigation into what happened and why he keeps getting set off by the feds. And like, I don't know, I kind of liked his like how active he was in trying to like figure out what was going on and like prove to his uncle that he can be it. So I kind of started to think like, yeah, he obviously has aspirations to take over, but I don't think he would have killed Navarro, whereas Navarro was more than willing to give him up
Yeah, that's
to
true
save his
looking
own
at
neck.
it at the end, but like, yeah, he does have that sort of playful, cheeky side, like even when he's having dinner with the birds and Charlotte. But then, yeah,
The
when
oysters.
he snaps real quick and just goes all out crazy psycho.
Yeah, he really hates the birds. Like I was kind of surprised that he hated them so much.
I guess because he kind of feels like they're trying to slide into where he feels he should be, and obviously
Yeah.
without Navarro telling him and sort of letting him in on what's going on, he does feel that,
Mm.
hey, these guys are trying to take my spot. So that's why I think that tension is between them.
Yeah, like, yeah, their importance, their value that they're bringing to the family business, like, should be his. And yeah, you're right. Like, because he wasn't kind of let in on what was going on with his uncle, he feels very, yeah, left out. And I guess, and you would question, and I mean, really, like, why do Marty and Wendy have any allegiance or, um, yeah, why should they have any allegiance to the Navarro family when they're kind of, I mean, they're being held captive. Like everything that happens with them is part of being manipulated and bribed and blackmailed into doing things for them. You know, I'll give you your freedom if you launder me $5 million. We've actually made it $100 million. Actually, I want freedom. Like it's just constantly, and you know what? It kind of is reflective of how Darlene said to the chauffeur. He's like, cool, well, I'll keep your secret for you, but I'm probably going to need something to like help me keep my mouth shut. And she's like, here it is, I'll kill you. Shoots him, and she turns to Wyatt and goes, yeah, it's always something, and they're going to keep coming back. Like it's not just one thing, he's going to keep coming back for more. I'm going to bed, I'm really tired. And you know, it's exactly the same thing. Like with the cartel, they keep saying one more thing, but it's never one more thing because they know they've got all of this power over Marty and Wendy. So why would they give that up?
Yep. I think probably the big question with part two is, do the birds escape or do they end up being killed?
Well, I mean, the very opening scene of season one, of episode one, is the car accident. They're
Hmm.
driving to Chicago and they have a car accident. They roll their car. So, I mean, do they make it out of the car? What happens after that? Like, maybe we've actually just seen the very end of the season and they all just die.
Wow,
Good.
you've tripped me out there because I totally forgot about that until now. So yeah, that's a good point. Like it could be sort of like that, like you with your time loop stuff. It could be one of those time loops where, hey,
Yeah.
that's the actual end of
Yeah.
the series, and it's, were they trying to run away or were they free and just heading home happy, and then it all goes pear shaped and they get
Yeah.
no benefit at the end anyway, no happy ending, even
So
though it kind of is a happy
basically,
ending.
yeah, this whole like story about following these people and like the plight they're going through to try and clear their name and live a normal life, and then it was all for absolutely nothing.
That
And they
would
just
probably be a
die.
very fitting ending if that's what it is.
Mm,
They get their happy ending, but then on the way to there, it
yeah,
just ends up
karma,
in.
very karmic. um, but yeah, I also kind of found like Wendy's relationship with Navarro to be very odd. Like
Mm,
she obviously has, like, you know, if we wanted to kind of delve into the psychological elements of each character, like, you know, her relationship with her dad is terrible. Like, he's super religious, pushed that on her. And like, she even said when they had their little meeting, like, she was like, you know, I did all this stuff and I ran away and you never came to find me. And now Ben's missing and you're trying to find him. And her dad said something like, yeah, well, I can't remember what he said to that, but it was something really like cutting. And then he was like, yeah, well, when you ran away, it was just so nice and quiet.
Mm.
It was like, wow, so what a great relationship you guys have. No wonder she's just so like, fuck off. Oh, my neighbor's cat is trying to get my attention. And then, you know, the way that she has related to other men in the series, like, you know, her relationship with Marty, and then like her first, like the man she was cheating on him with, like older, richer, takes care of her. And then now this kind of parallel with Navarro where, yeah, he's like powerful and rich and they do have like a mutual respect for one another. And kind of like a weird sexual tension, flirty moment when they were in the abandoned mall and she was like bandaging him up. Like, I don't know, it was weird. I thought it was really weird.
Yeah, it's kind of like you kind of think, is she just trying to manipulate him, or yeah, does she have sort of quote unquote the daddy issues and just is
Yeah,
attracted to those powerful men?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would definitely say she's attracted to power, absolutely, because, you know,
Mm.
she grew up without a lot of it and a lot of self-agency, and, you know, she was doing really well in her career up until they had kids, and then had to take that back seat to, you know, Marty's career and be the stay-at-home mom, and had the miscarriage and all the depression and stuff that kind of went with that. And then when she tried to get back into the workforce, they're like, oh, you know, you've missed your chance, which, you know, it's fucked and is the story that a lot of women, you know, have to deal with when they have children and then try and get back into the workforce. Like, oh, well, you've missed your moment. Too much has changed. Like, you can't just swap back in and continue with your career if you've taken time out. So it is like, when you kind of reflect on all that sort of stuff, I do kind of understand where she's coming from, why now she's found something to kind of get her political career back on track and have that power again. And she does seem to be good at it. Like, you know, she has managed to weave her way into this social scene in the Ozarks with these politicians and, you know, become friends with the lawyer and, you know, grow her self-standing in the community and all that sort of stuff, and like win like interesting little moments, you know, with the politician who was looking for information on his son. You know how he's like, well, my son, whatever,
Yeah,
like has
the
this
like embezzlement
technology.
type thing. Yep.
Yeah, basically like a voter fraud is pretty high on that guy's list, but he didn't really tell her that until they found it all out and got his vote for the directorship, and then all the rest of that went into it. But yeah, so she's definitely good at her job. She, yeah, just
Yeah,
kind of
like
just
he makes
picking
it
and
sound
choosing
like
to,
it's insider trading, but then you end up finding out it's voter fraud, and you're like, oh, that takes it to a whole
yeah,
another level of dodgy.
yeah, and, you know, like reflective of current like American politics and climate, like last year with voter fraud, using bunny quotes, but like, um, yeah, interesting that they kind of touch on that sort of stuff. And then she reflects on how all this could actually, we've just done him a favor so we could get him on our side now, but in the long run, this could actually come back to bite us in the ass and ruin our political ambitions. So that's interesting. She's like taking the small, quick win, immediate win, when in reality, in the long term, it could screw her over.
Yeah, I think it is a very like deep show that on the surface level it just kind of looks like a drug dealer and money laundering, but then once it sort of starts to
Mm.
flow out, there's a lot more to this show, and I think that's probably why it has such a strong standing with people that watch it, and why it will sort of be one of those timeless shows on Netflix that you can go back and watch anytime and it will feel like it's still relevant.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, about it being continuously like an evergreen show, like continuously relevant. But you'll also like pick up on like little like layers of storyline and information that you missed the first time. Like even just having this chat now, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, like this makes sense. Like maybe this is why she behaves like that. And like, oh, I forgot about this other thing. Like I'm terrible. I watch TV shows while I'm doing something else, like everybody else in the world. Like I'm on my phone or I'm making jewelry or I'm doing accounting or whatever. So I'm always like 80% engaged with something.
Yep.
So it's probably a lot of stuff I've actually missed from this last season or misinterpreted or gotten wrong.
And that is the hard part with Netflix too, releasing essentially full seasons in one hit. You kind of feel like you need to binge through it quickly so that it doesn't get spoiled for you in the coming weeks. Whereas shows that release, like a lot of places now are moving back to the weekly releases on shows. And I enjoy that more because, you know, each week all I need to commit is 1 hour to be fully caught up, and I can do that. Like I can put my phone away, I can switch everything else off and focus on this one thing for an hour without feeling like if I miss this, I'm going to be lost and people are going to spoil it for me.
Yeah. And it kind of like is a nice nostalgia to when we were kids and you had to wait every week to watch the new episode and it was exciting, and then you had to wait another week, and like that actually, you know, I kind of did that last year with Perfect Strangers or Nine Perfect Strangers. Did you watch that? The Nicole Kidman resort in Byron Bay, or set in California, but it was filmed here.
Yeah, no, I didn't,
watch it?
but I heard it was a pretty good show.
It was pretty good actually. But they released every episode every Friday night, and you know, I was kind of like, oh damn it, like I really want to just like watch everything, but then at the same time it was really nice to be able to like be like, oh, it's Friday night, that episode has dropped. Like it's same with Handmaid's Tale, they did the same thing. It's like, oh, it's Thursday night, like I can watch Handmaid's Tale, like yay. So it's just definitely like nice, and I'm definitely more engaged in the TV show when it's just one thing. Like I put my phone down and I feel like I'm more engaged and active and present. But yeah, when it's like everything at once, I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna binge and swap it out and whatever, not really engage properly, and then ruin it for other people. I hope that there's going to be a disclaimer or a warning on this podcast episode where you're like, don't listen until you've watched.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be putting full spoilers in the title of the episode. Yeah, like when the streaming services started to roll out that week to week release, I was against it initially, but I'm definitely coming around to that being my preferred way to watch these shows.
Yeah, I'm in two minds. Like, yeah, I've definitely, there's definitely been moments where I've enjoyed the slow release and actually having to wait, and like it helps with my self restraint. Like I don't have a lot of self control, so now it's like, oh no, I just actually can't do it. So do something else, do something productive with my time.
And then on the last sort of thing on the Ozark, what do you think of the sort of the cinematography and the sort of blue tint that they give everything?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like there is definitely a cold grading to it. It definitely works with the storyline and the location and making everything feel very like dark and serious and cold. Yeah, I had definitely noticed that as well. Like it feels cold.
Yep. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like Australian movies, like the one recently, Nitram on Stan, about the Port Arthur massacre. It had that very sort of blue, sullen tone to it as well. So
yeah,
it's just something
that's good.
Not great. It's kind of a bit of a trudge to get through. Like it was interesting to sort of see the background, but it ends right as the massacre begins, which I think is
that's good though, because you don't really want to romanticize or glamorize or dramatize like that. Like I don't think that we need to go into that, and it's not respectful to the families, or I'm glad that they didn't show that.
Particularly because it wasn't all that long ago. Like there are definitely still
Oh,
people that are
absolutely.
like the
People
kids of
impacted
some of
and
the
hurt by
people.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is interesting, like, to kind of look at his backstory. I have read a little bit into him, and yeah, like his weird friendship with an older rich woman and fascination with, yeah, it's an interesting.
It was an interesting, like, I'm glad I watched it, but it didn't quite meet the level of expectation that I was hoping for.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Oh, I might still watch it. Let's see.
And now, a quick word from our sponsors. First up is Decorate and Dance. For them, life is a party. And now, as summer rolls around, the parties will be coming thick and fast. If you are hosting a party or an event, then all of the ingredients for a good time start with the 3Ds. Design, decorate, and dance. You can't have a party without a theme, design, balloons, florals, and more, decorations, and some good tunes, dance. The team over at Decorate and Dance can provide it all. Specializing in kids' parties, adults' parties, hens nights, baby showers, corporate events, and weddings. Decorate and Dance provide everything you'll need to have a great event. Book a designer, decorations, and a DJ for a party to be remembered at www.decorateanddance.com.au. That's www.decorateandandance.com.au. Next up is LF9 Designs. You in need of a new logo or event posters, Twitch overlays or emotes, or even merchandise designs? Then look no further than the team at LF9 Design for all of your graphic design needs. The team there can provide anything you need to suit all styles. Check them out on Instagram at LF9 Design. And on that note, another movie on Stan that didn't meet my expectations at all was Zac Efron's new movie Gold, which released on Australia Day. Have you sort of seen the trailer for it at all?
No. I think actually maybe I have. I remember seeing something with Zac Efron on Stan, and then just gonna click past it.
Yeah, I suspect you've probably seen it somewhere. Like, they are pushing this movie really hard, and not entirely sure why. I think it's purely just because Zac Efron's in it, and they assume people will watch it for that reason. But it's basically about two guys in the outback, and they discover this giant gold nugget in the ground, and then they need to work out, because they've only got a ute, how are we going to excavate this out of the ground and get it back to the town so we can actually make some money out of this. So what happens is the side character, that Zach's character, decides one of us has to stay here and protect the gold so that no one else comes and takes it and claims it. So I'll go back to the town, get an excavator, and come back, and we'll dig it up and we'll be set. And then that's where the movie kind of falls off a cliff in terms of interest level. So basically, Zach is left there to look after this gold with very limited water and food out in the middle of the desert. So it's hot, sunny, and he just starts to go a little bit stir crazy. And yeah, it didn't quite live up to the expectations. I was expecting this really cool movie, and then it kind of takes this weird sci-fi twist at the end as well, where they don't lay it out at the beginning that this is meant to be sort of a post-apocalyptic world where everybody is struggling. But then at the end, that's kind of just thrown in out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, okay, that seemed a bit weird and out of place to put in there. I think I would have preferred if it was just basically him trying to survive in modern Australia. But nope, weird post-apocalyptic world. And then Zach doesn't really have a lot of dialogue in the movie as well. I think his script was probably 2 pages worth of dialogue at most. There's hardly any dialogue. It's just sort of physical acting, which I'll give him props for. He does do a really great performance in this movie. Just the story was so thin in terms of what they try and convey about sort of
Mm.
essentially the perils of greed. So, spoiler, the end of the movie finishes with, it turns out that the guy that went back to get the excavator had got the excavator and come back, but didn't come all the way back. Kind of just stayed on the horizon with binoculars and watched until Zac dies.
Waiting for him to die. Oh,
Yep.
what an
And then
asshole. Well,
and then he
yeah.
goes in and takes the entire chunk of gold for himself.
Yeah.
And
So Zac dies in the end.
Yep. And like the makeup department, props to them as well. They do a really great job of sort of showing the impact of the harsh realities of being in the desert for multiple, like I think it goes over like 3 or 4 days where he's got virtually no water by the end of the second day, so he's really struggling, and he's just constantly sunburnt and like blistered, and the makeup is great, but yeah, the storyline was just kind of like, well, that was underwhelming, and the ending I was kind of like, okay, that was an hour and a half of nothing really.
Okay, I'm definitely not going to watch it then. So what's the sci-fi twist then? We've already established that Zac dies, and I'm not going to watch this. So what's the weird sci-fi twist? Is it just that it's apocalyptic Australia? Is it set in Australia? It must be.
It's kind of like you see a couple of Aboriginal people at the start, and the co-star, who is also the writer and director of the movie, Anthony Hayes, got an Australian accent, so it's kind of like Australia without them ever actually saying Australia, so it could just be sort of any random desert. But the sci-fi twist is a lady comes in, like stumbles across Zac, and her little dialogue part is about how people in the city kind of exploited minerals and resources to the point where now everybody is basically living in this weird desert landscape world where everybody's struggling to get by. But there's a couple of people in the city that come out to the desert and try and exploit more minerals and just keep pushing it further and further without thinking of the impact that it's having on the world. And just it felt really out of place. It was like, why did we just suddenly shoehorn this in?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of current though, like, Indigenous, beautiful, thousands of years old Indigenous artifacts getting blown up by, was it Rio Tinto? And, all of the, fracking and exploitation of the land that we have going on here. So it's probably worthwhile bringing up, but it sucks to hear that they didn't really do it very well.
Yeah, like I think there's a great nugget of an idea in the movie. It's just not executed well in terms of how the movie plays out in the end.
Is Zac supposed to be Australian? Like, does he do a really terrible Australian accent or a good Australian accent?
He's just Zac. They don't try and force an accent on him, thankfully. That would have made the movie good. I'm glad worse. They don't do that.
I did watch The Dressmaker. Actually, I watched half of The Dressmaker a few months ago, and Kate Winslet does a very convincing Australian accent. She's English or British. I'm actually not sure where she's from over there. But yeah, she has a really convincing Australian accent. But that was a little bit... I like to spoil things for myself. So I started reading up on the storyline on Wikipedia halfway through watching the film, and then I read something that I really didn't like, and I was like, nope, not watching it.
I'm not watching the rest of this now.
Yeah, I was like, something happens that I don't want to happen, so I'm just not going to watch it. But yeah, she did a really great accent, and I think that Liam Hemsworth is the younger one. And yeah, he was quite good in it.
Well,
I think he's quite underrated actor.
Oh yeah, Liam is a much better actor than people give him credit for. I think they just look at everyone looks at Chris Hemsworth and he's the big superhero guy, and kind of just lump Liam in the same category.
I think you kind of are always going to get overshadowed by like the first successful brother, but like I rewatched all of the Hunger Games films last year, peak lockdown. Peak lockdown, I started watching like all of those big trilogy films because I never actually watched the rest. I think I'd watched the first one and a half Hunger Games, and then this is 2012. I read the books, hated the ending, and was like, I refuse to watch the films. Like, I'm not going to watch them because I hate the way it ends. And then finally, I was like, all right, I've already watched all of the Batman films. I've rewatched the Matrix trilogy. So I'm going to watch the Hunger Games. So I watched I watched the whole series of the Hunger Games, and he's in that, and he's actually quite good in that. Yeah, he's a very good actor.
And having watched the Batman trilogy recently and the Matrix, have you seen the newest Matrix, and are you excited for the new Batman?
I haven't seen the new Matrix yet though, but it is on my mental list that I'd completely forgotten about. So thank you for reminding me. I definitely want to watch that. Somebody told me that I don't know how I missed this, but watched the entire Matrix trilogy recently, and I got to the end, and they're in the ship, and his eyes are burnt, and she's dying or stabbed or whatever. But I didn't realize that they died. Did they die?
They do in the Matrix, but not necessarily, or they die in real life, but not in the Matrix, or something weird like that, where they die in one of them, but not the other.
I don't know what I thought happened. I thought that they were just, I don't know. I just thought that they didn't. I just didn't think, oh, they died, even though his eyes are all fucked up and she gets stabbed. I was like, oh, they'll be fine, right? Like, they'll be okay. They'll figure it out. But yeah, I didn't realize that they actually died. And then someone gave me like the gist of the new Matrix film and was like, yeah, well, they died and now they're like back to life in Matrix or something. And I was like, what?
Yep.
I don't know how I missed it.
Like, I enjoyed the new Matrix, but yeah, like it was definitely better than 2 and 3, but
okay,
1 still stands.
Yeah,
that's way up on its own level.
Like, season 1 of TV shows is usually the best, and then everything is downhill from there. And it's the same with sequels. Like, the first one is always the most exciting. You're introduced to characters. Like, once you actually start to, it's kind of like a relationship, like the honeymoon period, and then you start to get to know someone, you're like, oh, I'm so boring now. But yeah, like, but yeah, like the Matrix the first one was incredible, and then it was just kind of like there's that horrible dance scene in, I think, the second one, and they are dancing. They're in like a disco rave in the cave for like 6 minutes of my life that I'm not going to get back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that whole scene was purely just so they could have that disco like location for the movie, and to get that music in.
Yeah, and to kind of show this like opposite of, oh well, in the Matrix everything is modern, everything is, super sci-fi, and like you've got like these amazing spaceships, and we're zooming around, and there's AI everywhere, and there's like all of this super high technology. And then like the human in us, like born and bred real humans, not grown on the trees, not in the vineyards or whatever, like the real humans, we all come back to our base humanity of dancing and like this kind of primitive vibe. And it was very like, I don't know, I felt like it was just trying to show this stark difference between like, being human and then all the rest of the sci-fi level of it. So they really took everything back to that kind of earthy base level.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, but yeah, it pissed me off because I was like, this is so long. Like, I don't need to watch
unnecessarily long. Which is
so unnecessary.
Matrix 4 kind of has a little bit of that as well, where it's just a little bit in the middle, probably could have been cut out and condensed, but I liked the twist in the cinematography where this one is much more bright and uplifting lighting effects, basically, and natural light rather than that harsh artificial fluorescent light, which is cool.
Yeah.
What are you thinking of? What are you thinking of the Batman, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and the Batman?
I didn't know that this was happening.
Oh,
I did read something about Robert Pattinson being Batman, and then I must have just ignored it. I was like, oh yeah. But I didn't know this was happening. So I'm actually kind of excited about it. I really like Robert Pattinson.
and the
I think he's
trailer
got
looks amazing.
quite a bit of depth. Yeah. What is it on? Is it like going to the movies, or it's going to be on Netflix, or?
It's in the movies on March 2 or 3.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
it's
I will.
soon.
I've already had COVID, so I will absolutely go and hopefully not get it again in a super spreading cinema.
Oh
My
yeah.
biggest cinema's a super spreader event, but while I've still got like hot antibody summer going on, I might go and watch it.
You'll just have to do the old person screening, like the 10 a.m. one where nobody else goes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely gonna hit that up. I need to go and watch the trailer now. But yeah, I really like Robert Pattinson. I think he's got some pretty good range after Twilight. He did not have any in Twilight. Twilight was awful. I tried to rewatch that last year as well. I was like, I
Can't
I
push
don't know
through.
why I ever. I was like, I don't know why I ever like. I used to read the books. I watched the movies a couple of times, and I knew that was stupid. But then like now, I think I'm just at that age where I'm like, I cannot with like all of the there's just too many like
Over the
I'm not going
top
to go into
teen
it. Too much
drama
like
stuff.
feminist bullshit. Just like it's just gross patriarchal garbage. It's like internalized misogyny that Stephanie Meyer has. That she wrote this dumb book and that turned into this painful to watch, obsessive movie franchise. But I really liked him in that recent Christopher Nolan film, Tenet.
That's it. Yeah, that was a mind.
Yeah, it's a weird
That's
name.
one you need to kind of
Never
watch a
gonna
couple of
remember.
times to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched it whilst reading like the explainer because I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Smart, very smart.
Yeah, so I kind of like had a decent understanding of what was going on. And yeah, I didn't know whether to trust Robert Pattinson's character in that for ages until like at the end you realize actually he was on a good guy. I won't ruin it. I've ruined a lot of other stuff today, but I'm not going to ruin this one. But yeah, I thought he was good in it.
And then just closing out the
Interesting
Batman,
film.
I think one of the most interesting factoids with the Batman is it's settled in a runtime of like 2 hours and 33 minutes, but they did a test screener where it was a 4-hour movie. So I'm glad they went for the shorter option rather than the 4-hour option, especially if it's in cinemas. 4 hours is a long time to sit in a cinema. They would have had to have an intermission,
You must
surely.
get a break. Yeah. Surely you watch an hour and a half and then you go for a pee break, get some popcorn, come back, hour and a half, get a sandwich, some water.
Yeah, like I would have to go to the bathroom at least twice in a 4-hour movie. And I would have run out of popcorn and drink way before I even got to halfway.
But then everything is salty and you're like, your mouth is dry. No, it's not work. So what is this film about? Like new Batman film? Are we going back to the beginning? Is it an extension of the Christopher Nolan stuff? Is it by Christopher Nolan? I really should have. Yeah, I really wish I'd like seen the trailer before we had this chat.
So it's totally separate from the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. They have come out and said that it is not going to retread the origin story of Batman because it's been done copious times before. It's essentially just Batman, the Riddler, and Catwoman.
Okay.
They're sort of the three main ones. Penguin is in there.
Who's playing the Catwoman?
Not Halle Berry. Who is it? It is.
She was one, wasn't she?
She was one previously. No, it's Batman cast. Let's have a look. So we've got Robert Pattinson. Colin Farrell is playing Penguin.
I like Colin Farrell. He's cool. He's done some really good stuff. Oh, we should talk about The Gentleman as well.
Oh, that's a great movie.
It's a fantastic film.
It doesn't look like they have written down who is. Oh, Zoe Kravitz. Yes.
Yeah. She's cool. She's a great actress.
So yeah, like I'm excited for it. So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I'm just looking at the crew now. Ben Affleck. Is he
Yeah,
back
I'm
in
a
it?
I don't know how he's going to tie into it without people going, wait, isn't he Batman?
Yeah, right.
Because he's been Batman in the Justice League movies. So
Yeah. Wasn't he also, I don't know.
if you get a chance,
Cool. All right. I'm excited to see this for sure.
look at Colin Farrell as the Penguin though. He's like unrecognizable.
Colin Farrell. There we go. I love it when it just suggests it. What? Wow. Wow. Like,
I did not
how
recognize him
how
for so
experience that?
long.
That is insane.
Yeah, I watched the first like 2 trailers and had no
Incredible.
idea he was in it until I read somewhere that he was in it. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's incredible. You know what? I couldn't really even see like Tom Hardy in Bane.
But at least like
Really,
he
I
has a
know he's
mask
wearing
on, so
his
it
mask,
makes sense.
but
Whereas
yeah,
this is just a
this
face.
is just prosthetics. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. I'm excited for the new Fantastic Beasts as well. And I like that they replaced Johnny Depp with Lars, is his name Lars? Hannibal, the guy that played Hannibal.
Yep.
Yeah, I binge watched that last year as well. God, I watched a lot of TV, just stuck inside the whole time.
I watched Hannibal last year.
What's his name? Mads Mikkelsen.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. So interesting that he's stepped in for Johnny Depp. Have you seen those films?
Yes. Yes, I'm going to hopefully get to see the next one early again. I got to see the last 2 early, so fingers crossed.
Oh, that's cool. Is that a work perk?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm getting awesome. I just got invited to the Uncharted movie in a couple of weeks, so that'll be interesting to see if it's as bad as it looks in the trailer. It doesn't look
That's bad going into something and being like, I'm about to waste 2 hours of my time.
Yeah, but at least, so that's okay. At least I'm not paying for it. I'd be annoyed if I paid for it.
Oh, maybe it's better going with low expectations, and then you'll be like, actually, that wasn't that bad. That was good.
Yep. Alrighty.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. We covered a lot there today. Thank you for jumping on.
An hour and a half of chatting about films.
Obviously, Ozark will be your top recommendation for the week.
Yes, if people haven't seen the first part of season 4, then definitely jump onto it. Hopefully they have seen it now that we've just talked all about it.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow Jess on Instagram at Maison de Femmes, and you can get a glimpse of the beautiful jewelry she creates over there. And you can follow me on social media at Jamie Media and at Pario Magazine. Thank you, Jess, for jumping on, and good luck with everything. And hopefully we might get you back later in the year and maybe talk about the Batman again or the Fantastic Beasts if that comes around. Part 2, yeah. Part 2 is probably the more logical one.
Yeah, well, cool. No, thanks for having me. It was good. Good chat.
Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the community support group level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Blake Robinson, Brian and June Hart, Courtney Paulson, Darren Hackliff, Jackson Carr, and Tracy Apps.